Good afternoon, Berlin. Good morning, East Coast. My name is Nikolai Tretiakov, Project Manager International Business in Digital Association Berlin-Brandenburg, and I'm very, very glad to welcome you all today on our 8th edition of Berlin Meets USA webinars. And today's topic is educational technology, its innovations, and we wrap it up with several rounds of business speed dating. And without any further delay, let me introduce our event partner, Franziska Erhardt, Project Manager USA and Canada from Berlin Partner for Business and Technology. Franziska, welcome.
Thank you, Nikolai. Good morning and good evening. A warm welcome from my side to all of you. My name is Franziska Erhardt. I'm in charge for the US and Canada at Berlin Partner. Berlin Partner for Business and Technology is the Economic Development Corporation of the city of Berlin. We support companies to launch, innovate, and expand in Berlin. To do so, we have many experts in all relevant sectors and offer a wide range of customized, free of charge services. Please feel free to reach out to me in case you want to open business in Berlin or you are interested in expanding. At Berlin Partner, we started the event series Berlin Meets USA, I think back in 2017. We work close together with SIBB in this matter since about 2 or 3 years. It's been a great partnership. Thank you so much to Nikolai and the whole SIBB team. We look forward to many more events like this to come. At this point, it's my great pleasure to also mention that Cristina Garcia, Managing Director of the Berlin Business Office in the US, is also here with us today. She's located in New York City and will later also participate in the matchmaking. So thank you all for joining us on the EdTech topic today. And now back to you, Nikolai.
Thanks a lot, Franziska. And at this point, I want to tell a little bit about all of our other partners. There is a special thanks and shout out to New York Tech Alliance that helped us a lot in the organization of this event. And this event is actually happening as a part of Point Out project. And in scope of this project, we try to connect IT platforms in the East Coast of US and in Berlin. This project is funded by Berlin Senate of Department of Economics, Energy and Public Enterprises. And I think that's the right time to announce our first speaker today. That's Christian Rebernik, the founder of Tomorrow's Education. Christian, are you here? Hi.
Works. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope this will work out because unfortunately I'm in the train this time. I'm doing the presentation from here due to some circumstances. So let me introduce myself. I'm Christian Rebernik, founder and CEO of Tomorrow's Education. I'm coming from Austria. I have a background for more than 20 years in building companies and products in very different industries, like N26, creating a bank, or working for the United Nations World Food Program, creating Share a Meal, or one of my last ventures was like in health space, the Vivi, a digital health record for Germany. Let me share the presentation and see if this works as well. Can you see the presentation? Yeah, I hope this is working now. So Tomorrow's Education is about to learn the skills for building a better tomorrow, right for you, right here and right now. We are a really young startup, just started at the end of last year, founded during the pandemic. And the key reasons why we have actually founded, because education today feels a little bit like this, if we remember the old-fashioned TV. When I was in the pandemic, personally, I have kids and I was watching them, how they learn and how hard it is actually for them to learn. When they just been told, hey, you need to learn this, because I've told you so, and if you don't do, then you get a bad grade, or watching them actually going to video conferences online isn't making the things like traditional learning way better. And literally noticed also when people learn via video conference that they pretty much fall asleep or are not just really engaged, because it's something which can be very monotonic. So this was making me think about, I'm not sure how about your learning experiences here, but this was making me think us about how learning should be actually, and why hasn't it actually changed in the last 20 years or even longer maybe. And when I was working in this many industries before, these have changed massively over the last decade. And I think that this is also due in education. So this is also not just due, but I think it's also important, because looking into the future, we see that we have today with the COVID pandemic a crisis, but then there are more crises to come, including climate change, including biodiversity, including fake news and others. And we need smart people and critical thinkers to help us solve those problems. And education is more about getting our next generation or our existing generation actually ready for this, to solve those kind of challenges. So our mission is to educate and empower the change makers of tomorrow. And for this, we want to leverage the latest learning science and technology for effective learning, and foster also a global community for continuous growth and impact. So how are we doing this? The key part for us is that we don't want to have education centered around teachers or professors, because we believe it's all about the learners. And for us, this means no fixed classes, no fixed time where you actually learn, no traditional teaching, and also no traditional grading. And how do we do this is we created a platform for our students where students can learn based on challenges. So if I think back about the time when I was learning most efficient and most effective, it was not for my personally when I was working something very hard at the university, but actually when I was working on a real life challenge. Because it creates relevance. I know what I learn, and I need to master a challenge, and by that also will gather all the information necessary to master it. And we believe this is a very important approach of the relevance for the students, and have them apply what they have learned. And they can solve the challenges not just alone, but also together, working in teams around the globe, network, have fun. And they get the support to excel, in the sense that they have working with peers, getting feedback. They have personal mentoring from a more experienced people, also in the industry, and getting support and inspired by world-class ambassadors. And the product includes, and what we believe is very important, a support to learn effective and efficient. And this is a way of active learning, which is short, bite-sized learning with 10 to 15 minute learning sessions where you get, which is highly interactive, and you get a lot of feedback, and you can learn as fast as you need and as you want. For some, like me, maybe finance is harder, for us it's technology harder. And this is an important part, and it includes inspirational part, and it's also focused in collaboration actually with partner institutions like the Vienna University of Business and Economics. But we believe learning is not just happening online, and we believe the future of learning is something which is very important. It's about building relations and building a network and a community. And what we believe is that if you look into the future, the learning locations need to move closer to the students, and it needs to be closer to enable students to be inspired and get connected in different cultures. Like that you as a student can learn, if you are interested in IoT, go to Shenzhen in China, for example, to learn about about the location, about IoT there, or you go to the Silicon Valley and experience one time how the Silicon Valley really is, or you maybe are interested in South Africa and to build up your network there. So what we currently offer, our first product and first program is a professional master, which is accredited in the US and in Europe. It's in sustainability, entrepreneurship, and technology. And this is where you learn and master the 21st century skills in 2 semesters. It's part-time. This one currently is 100% online. It's accredited in the European Union, and it's accredited also in the US. It's starting just in a couple of weeks now, on the 22nd of April this year. And this is the first start of our program. This is tomorrow's education. Your university in a pocket to achieve impact. And I'm really curious also to learn from you if you want to engage and discuss how effective learning can work, and also happy to look into partnerships, and as well we are looking for sure for our first students to join us. Maybe quickly to mention this is the last part, is that on the attraction side, we have more than 100 applications for this program. And we have currently working together with 7 corporate partners. We have companies like the Deutsche Bank or PwC or Deutsche Börse, Eintracht Frankfurt or DBD in collaboration to make this really very also supporting people in solving real challenges for our partners. With that said, thank you very much. Giving the word back.
And there is one question asked in our Q&A panel. People ask, is there any internship or any practical orientation to be organized as a part of the program?
In the first program, in the first professional master we're working on, this is where we engage the student with the ambassadors, which are from our partner companies. But currently in this program, there's no internship planned. Yeah? We will announce further programs and future programs, which will be including also internships.
And there is also the second question, who create learning content? But yeah.
So the learning content is created in collaboration with the first one with the University of Vienna of Business and Economics, where they create one part of the content where specifically in sustainability in this field, and we have our own team focusing on technology and entrepreneurship. So this is the first collaboration, but we're also working with other institutions together where they are delivering course content more specifically. But as we develop the company and the programs, we'll also are looking for more partnerships in that regard.
Okay, Christian, thank you a lot for your wonderful presentation. It was like a huge thing to know that now we can do our masters completely online from any point on this earth. And I wish you a happy, safe travel.
Even in the train.
Especially in the train.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's a great beginning.
See you later.
Yeah. Ash, now I would like you to turn your camera on. So, good morning.
Good afternoon.
I hope you have a really bright day. Ash is co-founder of Started and producer of EdTechWeek, a huge event happening in US. And with this short introduction, Ash, scene is completely yours.
Sure, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Again, my name is Ash Kaluarachchi. I'm one of the producers at EdTechWeek. I also run a company called Started, which focuses on supporting education innovators. A quick summary of where I'm coming from. I've spent most of my life investing in and helping education founders grow their organizations. The education, as I define it, is pretty broad. We'll talk about in a second how these markets of pre-K, K-12, higher ed, workforce learning, and adult learning make up a $6 trillion global market. the venues at which I've had the privilege of supporting entrepreneurs include Techstars. I was an early employee at that accelerator, at Intel, and then also at New York University. I've helped those organizations launch EdTech accelerators. The programs that I've run have invested in about 100 companies, and they've resulted in creating about 8 to 10% of global EdTech unicorns. But I won't take the credit for that. I will lay that squarely on the shoulders of the founders who run those organizations. We are there in support, as good educators are. What I'd like to talk about today is really a couple of different things. In this great partnership we're creating between the German and US ecosystem, I want to fill in the gap around what's happening in the US. So I'll share my screen here and tell you a little bit about some of what we're working on. The goal here is to really answer your questions. So if you include your questions in the Q&A or the chat, I'll respond to them as I go along. Let's make this interactive, since it's a great group, and I want that to be an ongoing conversation. Let me just share my screen here. There we go. I'm sharing some information from Holon IQ. So that's an organization that gathers intelligence about the global EdTech community. If you haven't checked them out, I highly recommend it. I'm not a customer or an investor, but I just think their work is great. I think this headline really says it all. I think when a lot of us started this work, EdTech wasn't getting the attention or the investment it deserved. That is represented in these numbers. About 500 million in venture capital entered the EdTech space about 10 years ago. But now we're seeing almost 30 times that investment in 2020. And it looks like from the first quarter of 2021 that 16 billion is going to be blown out of the water, especially in the EdTech space. A lot of that investment is coming from specific geographical locations like China, like India, like the US. But I think it heralds a very interesting future for education innovators, being able to capture more value, being able to project larger growth, given that the attention has been really brought to the ecosystem given the pandemic. Now, the pandemic, as we all know, was a terrible time to be a human. It still is most places around the world, but it is a great time to be an education innovator. And the specific spaces that it's great to be an education innovator are in places like this. So you'll see on my screen a map of some of the most successful organizations in the US ecosystem. You'll see that those little blue bars don't look like what the little blue bars that when we actually really started 10 years ago. Back then, we were focusing on MOOCs, we were focusing on coding. Those are still on the screen, but you'll notice that jobs and upskilling, creating university partnerships, that's the OPM model, and then boot camps and alternatives to traditional education tend to be bubbling up now. I'll also pay special attention to that bottom right around wellness and mental health, that we project being integrated with this idea of providing education as an individual or as an organization. I'm going to show StartEd's version of this map as well in a second, but I wanted to get this as a starting point for the specific areas and the companies within them that we see great growth from. The EdTech industry, as I mentioned, is there along this lifelong learning cycle. I don't have to preach to the choir. A lot of you in the audience know this. But I'll also mention that within this learning life cycle, the areas that tend to have broken the most amid the pandemic and then are being brought and then reconstructed by the technology industry are the places between those traditional phases. So the transition from K-12 to higher ed, the transition from higher ed to the workforce tends to be where assessment, where reskilling, redirection tend to be optimally delivered using technology, and it's more efficient and effective when targeting these areas. I'll do a quick overview of the US K-12 market, just in terms of the market that about 40% of the companies in the US tend to be focused on are these 100,000 public schools in the US, right? They employ about 4 million educators and administrators, and that's not talking about the charter schools in the bottom left of that screen. A few thousand charter school organizations defined as organizations that aren't as restricted by the budgetary requirements of the US government, so they can make more independent decisions about what technology is being used. Traditionally, that's a more risk-allowing market to trial your product in most places, but the public schools tend to be where the budget is. If you want to learn more about the enormous amount of federal funding that's being dedicated through the American Rescue Plan in 2021, President Biden's Education Secretary, Miguel Cardona, will be speaking at EdTechWeek on Monday. And if you dial in at 2 p.m. Eastern, you'll hear a little bit about where this additional federal funding is being devoted to. I'll also mention the higher education space as well, just because it is the second most important area in terms of the number of companies impacting the space. About 30% of EdTech companies tend to be focused on higher ed. It's important to distinguish between the 4 years, the 2 years, and the public and private universities as well. Navigating the US market in terms of higher ed tends to be very tricky. Tends to take a long time as well to build relationships, since things are relatively parochial. And that's not counting these vocational education schools, these alternatives like boot camps that are popping up, as well as this newly structured OPM model, online program management models that companies like Noodle are spearheading. So I won't talk much more about those markets, because I do want to spend a little bit of time on workforce learning. These are really the companies that we think are really making an impact in the space. This guide shows kind of the 4 to 6 areas that hiring managers and chief learning officers tend to care about when they're educating their employees and sourcing talent. That's another area that we see growing much faster and tends to have a quicker sales cycle than the K-12 and higher ed markets. So we expect that market to be a very important area for EdTech investment amid the pandemic and also after it. That does conclude my overview of the markets. And I'll quickly mention that at EdTech Week, if you attend, the 6 of us producers, Pedro Noguera, who's Dean at US Erzia, Susan Wilford, who managed investment for the Bank of Montreal, Maya Sharpley, who's a prolific EdTech investor, and then my team, Jonathan, Doug, and myself, have put together about 60 to 70 free masterclasses delivered by the who's who in education. We're expecting about 4,000 to 6,000 individuals, educators, investors, entrepreneurs to turn up. We're also expecting the event to be particularly poignant, given that we're focusing on educational equity. We're focusing on some of the biggest deals in EdTech. And we're obviously seeing Miguel Cardona, Dr. Miguel Cardona from the Secretary of Education's office talk about President Biden's Department of Federal Funding in the education space. So feel free to tune in there. It's free to attend, and hope to see you there. Thank you.
During the presentation, there were some questions appeared on the Q&A tab. And the most important one is connected to investments. And people ask which sector is most interesting for investors, K-12 or corporate?
Great question. It depends on the investor. So EdTech tends to have a very diverse set of capital approaching it. By our count, there's about 20 different types of capital that EdTech entrepreneurs can tap into, dilutive and non-dilutive. and a given investor will have interests in either areas. So as an entrepreneur, it doesn't really matter what investors in general are focused on, but doing the research to understand the theses behind each fund, each individual in each foundation is a lot of what I tend to do and help founders figure out. Corporate does tend to be a large focus area given the faster sales cycle, but I suspect given the pandemic, we're seeing a lot more investment approaching K-12 and higher ed as well.
Oh, it was a great answer, and it was interesting to hear your entrepreneurial mindset about it. And yeah, we leave the second question of yours for a group panel because we're running out of time for business speed date. And thank you one more time for your presentation. I learned a lot of new things about differences of EdTech segments in
My
US.
pleasure.
So at this point, guys, let me revise the rules of business speed date. Right now, we'll have several rounds. We will move to the conference, to the Remo lounge, and you will be distributed evenly between the tables. And each business speed date round will last around 5 minutes, and there will be an announcement 30 seconds before the table change. At this point, I hope you completed your Remo profiles, so people are able to click on your avatars and get all the social data they want about you. And let's move downstairs to the hall, and good luck. Oh, wow. I don't know how was your experience, but mine was very intensive and the rounds were really short. Probably for next time, we will try to have more time for the rounds. So guys, at this point, we have really some activity held and it's time to have some short break and enjoy the presentation of our next speaker. So that's Alok Jain, co-founder and CEO of Moonshot Junior Incorporated, directly from San Jose, California. So Alok, are you here? Could you go up to the stage? Yay, I can see you. Super.
So you guys can hear me all right?
Yes. Okay. Ciao, ciao. Have a great conversation.
Thanks. So my name is Alok Jain. I'm right here in Silicon Valley, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. And with Moonshot Junior, though we are a very young company, we are in the business of building future entrepreneurs and innovators. So, like really, we see a big gap in the K-12 education, and this is not only US, but I think across the globe this is happening, except a few exceptions. So really, the innovation and entrepreneurship in K-12, and these are the skills to survive in the future. There are some very disturbing reports coming. PwC came out with a report. They are saying there will be only less than 10% full-time jobs in the next 10 years in the US. So I think definitely the future of work is changing, and our education system is not keeping up. So before I dive in there further, like to give a little bit of detail what we are doing. So we are definitely a global company. We have a B2C customers in over 14 countries. We have a partner network. We are working with folks in UK, USA, UAE, India, Malaysia, a few more places, and we have over 150 affiliates. So really what we are trying to solve and how this whole thing got started. So I'd love to walk you through with my story. So this is Sania. She's my daughter. She's 14 now. And she wanted my son to drink from these copper bottles. And he's only 9. And he said like, they look ugly. And she thought that maybe I can transform them. I can make them smaller in size, can have my social message. And then maybe I can sell them to eBay and so on. And she came to me and she said, this is my idea. And with all prototype, I will do manufacturing here and maybe e-commerce. I understand well. So all together, I put together time. And I said like, okay, it will take me 30, 40 hours of work, put some buffer. And I said, sure, let's give it a try. And this is not only my story. I think this is a story of every parent who has middle schooler or high schooler, and they believe they should do things and they should be taught this way. And though the picture is not really that rosy, what really happened when you start building something like this, the way you plan and the way it really work out, totally two different things. I mean, where to prototype? Would you be prototyping in India, in China, in US? We gave money to a vendor. The first prototype came, it was ugly. The second vendor took money, $2,000, and ran away, right? At every step, we had to see these struggle, whether it is manufacturing, crowdfunding, Kickstarter shut down our listing multiple times. So when we look at the result, it was 500 or 600 hours of work just to get that simple product out. And really, I mean, there was no infrastructure. I had to build everything from scratch. And at times you think it is really worth it. I mean, and there is this fatigue. And that's the reason many parents start things for their kids. Some finish 10%, some finish 20% and give up. And this fatigue is very real, even at institutional level. So there are many PBL institute. They are teaching thousands of kids, running show for last 10 years with the product-based learning, project-based learning. And you ask them, give me 5 success stories, and they struggle. And as a parents, we all understand it's the right thing to nurture the young minds in the entrepreneurship early on, because you have a lot more runway, you don't have much to lose. And so we were determined, and this is what we have put together. So right now, as part of the Moonshot Junior program, we are teaching technical skills. They are at the forefront of it. So we are teaching from robotics to AI to app and game development. But that's not one element. I think we believe very strongly that is not going to cut the future. Basically, you need to have technical skills, entrepreneurial skills, and soft skills. That's really the right recipe to survive in the future. So for the entrepreneurial skills, we are teaching them e-commerce, go-to-market. We have game boards. And for soft skills, we are teaching our students video creation, leadership, online marketing, and so on. So it's really a 4-stage of program. In the stage 1 or exploration, we give them exposure of all kind of cutting edge technologies, really trying to understand where their interest lies. Once we know that, we take them to the stage 2, that's a foundation in technology, and really give them foundational knowledge so each student can create a prototype. In the stage 3, once they have the prototype, we teach them the design thinking, 5-stage of product building experience, and then help them go to market, whether it is Amazon, App Store, NFT forms, and so on. So really, what we are doing, we are building these business recipes. Think about, there is a recipe like copper bottle. Now the next child can come, the child can have their own message, and we can do this a lot easily. There could be a t-shirt business. I can put any message. So the first time when we are building these businesses, it cost me $10,000, $20,000 to build this template. But once it is done, all the supply chain is there, logistics are there. I can teach a new child very, very cost effectively and get first 5 t-shirts out under his or her name on e-commerce platforms, let's say eBay, in under $1,000. So this is what we are really teaching in terms of learning for that child. Is identical as the child is building a brand new product. So these are really the consumer recipes. We have the app and game recipes. So you can really take a game to the App Store. We got the recipes in robotics. We got recipes in many other business verticals. So we have several success stories. A lot of students, they came out with their own product, and now they are selling on Amazon and so on. Of course, this number is going to be, let's say, maybe 5%, but our mission is really to take every child to the finish line. They might not have an original product. I can run 1,000 kids to this t-shirt business, and every child need to learn and able to connect the dots. That's really the Moonshot Junior mission. So we have learned a lot of things, and I'd love to share with you guys. So we have done crowdfunding, and crowdfunding gave us a couple of $100,000. That was not the main part of our fundraising, but crowdfunding gave us really a very loyal customers. So if you guys are a new EdTech company, please try it out. It might do the same magic for you guys. definitely we initially brought some MBA type topics to these kids, changing mindset and go to market and so on. And the kids do not like it. They really want to interact with the things. They want to do things, build things. So now there is a lot of interactive hands-on sessions. We have these global classrooms. So the kids are studying with kids in different countries, cultures, and that is where they are learning a lot. And we definitely believe the blended learning is the way to go. It's not really pre-recorded. The MOOC alone is not going to cut it, especially for the young generation. So it has to be a combination of pre-recorded, instructor-led, and hands-on exercises that will really the recipe for the right education. I think that's pretty much it. Love to take any questions. Am I still there? I think.
Yes, Alok. I would say you made your presentation really fast. That's congratulations. Yeah, I wanted just maybe you could tell a little bit more about blended learning, like to describe it, more in details, because it's actually a really interesting term.
Yeah, so I think the way the whole blended learning works for us, so we give the pre-recorded session on robotics and things like that, depending on what stream a child is picking. So they do that, they do their own exercises, then they come to a classroom setting with few more kids with the instructor, and instructor already knows where they perform well and not, and then they take them to a deeper dive. And then they work with these learning kits, so really hands-on exercises. So I think it's all goes as part of our curriculum, and it's very strong curriculum what we have put together here.
Wow. The second question I have is actually like in general, how long are the programs?
So our current program are 4 stages. So I think the tier 1 program, it takes a year. Each stage goes for 3 months.
3 months. Oh, and maybe one personal question from myself. So could you repeat, like, in how many countries do you operate at the moment? So US, India, right?
Yeah. So right now we are in 14 countries.
Wow.
We got a B2C customers in 14 countries.
That's great. Okay, Alok, thank you a lot for your presentation. It was really interesting to see the case success stories from the kids. So they already independent and successful entrepreneurs. So and we have now Stephan Bayer.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Stephan. So Stephan is also a speaker of SIBB's forum, Subscription Economy and Shared Economy, if I remember correct.
Yes.
And founder of sofatutor, the leading company in German-speaking world for digital school education. So Stephan, the word comes for you, and good luck with the presentation.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks. Hi, I'm Stephan. I'm the CEO and founder of sofatutor. If you are from Germany and you're interested in EdTech, I'm pretty sure you know us. And today I want to share some insights on how we actually went from being a B2C afternoon product you could call it a niche. Yeah, it's not a small niche, but it's definitely only one sector, and how we actually became the backbone of German homeschooling during the pandemic. And if you're not so familiar with sofatutor, we reach 2 million learners every week. We are more than 200 people in the team. We are EBITDA positive, so we're not burning in investors' money anymore. We're not a young startup anymore. We started back in 2008. And if you don't know so much about our offering, what we do is we provide educational videos, more than 11,000 videos, and I'm going to show you some videos in a second. There's interactive exercises, there's downloadable, printable worksheets, there's a daily homework chat with a big team of teachers who answers all your questions in a WhatsApp-like chat, and there's games. We are a typical K-12 company. We work on B2C subscriptions. That's our economic backbone, and we're not venture capital owned anymore. Since 3 weeks, we are now private equity owned. So a new chapter in our story as well. And something that we are particularly proud of is something I hope you can see now in my shared screen. It's the approach to educational video that we do. which sometimes we call ourselves the Disney of education, because what we do is we create these beautifully animated cartoons that are completely curriculum aligned. So you've got 3 to 5 minute videos teaching you everything your teachers teach you in school, from 1st grade all the way to 12th grade. So what we always do is we combine the boring math, the boring science with fun characters and fun stories, and through those stories you actually learn how to calculate, how to apply functions and formulas and so on, taking the instructional part, the lecturing part, the video part on a completely new level compared to what people usually do when they film themselves on a whiteboard, which I sometimes do too. But since all kids around the world have to learn the same math and the same science, we believe that it's worth spending a little bit more time and a little bit more money and a little bit more love on creating the most beautiful content you can find. We're also the largest EdTech company in Germany at this point when it comes to K-12 learning. And yeah, that's something we do. There's lots of stuff that went wrong and that didn't work out in the last couple of months. One Corona victim is a sales experiment. You can practically find sofatutor everywhere on the media, but one thing we tried was to actually sell sofatutor offline in front of supermarkets. And of course, people are not going to supermarkets so much anymore, and and they definitely don't want to talk to someone in front of the supermarket. So that's something that doesn't work in times like this. It was an experiment, but we had to pause it. Also super interesting is a kind of schedule heat map that shows you when people actually use sofatutor. And before sofatutor, you can see it's weekends and it's afternoons and sometimes late in the evening. And suddenly it, of course, happens in the morning. It happens during the week. Yeah? The usage pattern changed, and we had to shift our big team of teachers in the chat also to work in the mornings. And that's a big change that also led to us not just serving individual learners in the afternoon anymore, but suddenly it was the whole classroom using sofatutor, led by the student. If you are a German native speaker, if you're a German speaker, you understand what this shows. It's a Google Trends graph, and it compares the word tutoring, Nachhilfe in Germany, on the left, in the blue, the word tutoring with the brand name sofatutor. And what you can see here is that there's times in the last 12 months where we were searched more than the general term of tutoring within the German speaking internet, which is not small, and it's a pretty big market. So here we became more recognized actually than the general term, just like Xerox or Kleenex is a brand name that stands for a whole category. We beat the category of tutoring here actually with our brand name, which is pretty amazing. And now looking forward to everyone who's wondering, where is this going to lead? There's a lot of talk, but more and more data also being generated. There's some data here from Bain, and Bain has been asking teachers, when students return in an in-classroom environment, what teaching methods do you expect to incorporate more? And so there's the learning management tools, that a lot of people are saying we're going to use it, but there's also all kinds of software. There's student-directed activity, pre-recorded video lectures, which is kind of like the thing that we do best around the world. So much more stuff that definitely shapes teacher habits long-term. You can also see that almost half of the teachers are expecting to be much more heavy tech users after the pandemic, which is kind of common sense, but people have been claiming that now for some months, and now the first data, like real teacher data, also shows that it's again self-directed activities on the right side, on the lower right, which I believe is also essential, because through homeschooling and schools being closed, students have been drifting apart quite a lot. The clever and smart students became smarter, and they were able to handle the pandemic well, whereas students who were already left behind, they got even more left behind. So the diversity in the classroom when it comes to how different people are now actually learning, and the things that they haven't learned is gigantic. Yeah? And so self-directed activities can really help here. So everyone working in this field, I believe, has quite a lot of COVID tailwind in front of them. If you are a new founder, which I believe quite a lot of us here today are, I've prepared one slide that is that means to motivate you, but it's also kind of like a perspective on my own journey, comparing myself to all my founder friends in other ecosystems and other industries. Typically, a lot of founders start out in the typical plan to start, sell, and then chill, where in EdTech, you get the con that everything's not working so quickly. You get the pro that it's not just about making money. And I compare EdTech startups to climbing Mount Everest, but not like you would expect it now. I compare it to like all these startups, the normal startups, they start here in Camp 1, yeah? At 18,000 feet already, and they've got oxygen masks, and they've got Sherpas helping them through the next couple of camps. As an EdTech founder, you usually start here, and on your way up, you don't have oxygen masks, and you don't have Sherpas helping you and carrying your stuff up, which is because very often when we start something in EdTech, there's no budgets from schools, from school boards, from individual people. You're doing something new. Just like us, you start a new category. And with this comes that there's no procurement processes in place. Yeah, people don't even know how to buy you, if they want to buy you. The decision-making, the budgeting, everything needs to be created on the way as you shape the category. And being aware of that can help you to actually gather strength and be proud of what you're doing. And of course, COVID is actually helping us to move up into Camp 1 a little bit quicker than it might used to be the case before the pandemic. And that's, if you have questions, just ask.
Stephan, thanks a lot for the presentation and this nice motivational words, because I think now we need it more than ever for the success of our EdTech startups. So yeah, let's proceed to the questions. The most upvoted one is really technical. Are your videos available in other languages rather than German?
They will soon be, yeah.
Is there a chance that public schools include sofatutor to formal learning, or maybe you have some pilot projects about that?
Yes, absolutely. There's federal states who've bought sofatutor in Germany, in Austria, and Switzerland. There's companies like the German Telecom bought for its employees. The HR team bought sofatutor as a benefit to people being stuck in home office and having to deal with the homeschooling situation. So the institutional part is definitely something that's picking up. And so suddenly you've got different business units, not just the B2C subscription business anymore, but much more government and classical B2B as well.
Oh, thanks for the presentation, and thank you again for sharing the story of sofatutor.
Yeah.
And
shoot me an email if you want to talk. I'm also an active business angel mentor, and I always love to wrap my head around EdTech challenges. Yeah, stay in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephan. And right now we move to our fifth speaker in a row. So Frederick, are you here? So everyone, meet Frederick Eichler, Managing Director and Co-founder of Sciflow. And he will hold a presentation right now, keynote about rethinking academic writing. It's very interesting and grown-up topic.
All right, thank you very much. So my name is Frederick. I'm one of the co-founders of Sciflow, and I wanted to talk about two things today. Of course, I'm going to talk about what we do at Sciflow, but I also wanted to talk about a few trends that we have noticed, especially in the academic market in Germany, working with our customers during the last years that we did this product. But I wanted to start off with a question. I spent 52 hours formatting documents this year, and then I paid to submit these documents just for someone just like me to review them for free. Who am I? The answer to this seems pretty familiar to millions of researchers worldwide, because actually researchers are spending more than 2 days, not accounting for sleep, just formatting documents to then submit them to a journal. And this not only loses money, of course, researchers can probably imagine other things to do that time. So if you should ever visit my hometown of Berlin, there's in 52 hours or 2 days, there's a lot you can do. You can see the Brandenburg Gate, the Reichstag, you can see the cathedral, the East Side Gallery. You can imagine there's a lot of things that these researchers would rather do. And as you saw in the previous slide, it also means about $2,000 of money wasted on formatting per researcher every year. Imagine having 1,000 researchers, that's a lot of money that you're wasting. So, of course, the question now would be, what now? What are we doing? And we were so bothered by all this formatting and all these problems and emails, especially in Germany, being sent around with Word documents that we started Sciflow. So Sciflow is an online collaborative editor where you can invite your colleagues, where you can write a thesis, but you can also write a research paper. And it includes everything that you might need for writing this. So it has grammar and spell check in there. It connects to all your reference managers. So all you need to do in Sciflow is to connect your reference manager and then drag the reference into the text, and we will do all the formatting for you. There are about 8,000 to 10,000 citation styles in academia, and we support all of those, so you don't have to worry about them. As you can see in this screenshot, the interface is super simple, and that's exactly what we want to do. You need no technical knowledge. You can just jump in, and then we'll actually only allow you to do the things that you are capable of publishing in the end. So for instance, you can't set up a font size because that's something the publisher will decide. But of course, you can make something bold, you can add figures, you can add math, all the things that you need to do as a researcher. So then by just one click of a button, for instance, you might decide you want to publish a Word file that you want to publish with one of the big publishers, and it's automatically formatted in a way that they will accept. So you don't have to work on that. And if you decide to work with the different publishers or you're not accepted, which might happen, then you just select a different template and we'll actually switch everything around and it will still work. Of course, you might also want to write a thesis, a dissertation. You can do that and we'll generate all the content for you. So table of contents, all cross-references, all citation styles, all figures flowing correctly in a PDF. So all you have to do in the end is hit print and submit your thesis. And then thinking of a step further, we also support XML exports, which would be nice for publishers actually, because it means they don't have to handle a lot of Word files anymore. We could directly give them the data that was produced while writing and then attach all the original images and all the references. So there's no loss of information anymore. And those maybe 6 to 9 month cycles of review and editing files and sending them around could be reduced to a bit less, which would certainly be helpful for research in general. Now, this is Sciflow in a nutshell, but I wanted to also talk about some trends that we have noticed, especially in Europe, with higher education. And Stephan said this before, the pandemic has really changed a lot. And we, of course, noticed that as well. One thing that we noticed, of course, is digitization in the EU, or especially in Germany, has sped up quite a lot. And the other trend I want to highlight in a second is that universities have changed their roles to think about themselves as publishers as well, and next to the big publishers who are right now in control of the whole market. So talking about the first trend, digitization, well, from a European perspective for sure, is, in our opinions, influenced by a couple of things. For instance, and of course, home office has started to replace physical meetings, and that's super obvious. But what we also noticed is, because people are now using a lot of online tools like Zoom and conferencing tools, they're also more open to accepting and trying new solutions, which one of them might be Sciflow. And then last but not least, which is super important in Europe and especially in Germany, the GDPR, the European Data Protection Regulation, has really forced organizations to quickly think about new tools, also looking at where data is stored. So this has come up in almost every sales call, every sales conversation that we had within Germany. Where is the data stored? And this has become super important, because what you can imagine, if you're in the US, you probably can't imagine a school that doesn't have Google Docs. In Germany, that would be quite normal. On the left, you can see that when the pandemic hit, this is one of the organizations that has bought a campus license for Sciflow. The usage really picked up a lot, and you can really see when the first lockdown happened and when the user uptake actually started. And it was interesting seeing that for sofatutor. I think our habits for researchers really have changed as well, because everyone's working from home and not in the office anymore. So the second trend I wanted to highlight real quick is that institutions and universities are questioning their traditional role, and they're more and more thinking about publishing research themselves without going through Elsevier and Springer and all these traditional publishers. So of course there's some challenges there. Well, one is Microsoft Word-based workflows are really hard to automate, because Microsoft Word is just not a good product for automating and digitizing these kind of information and then pressing it into different formats. The other thing is that if you want to do the alternative, manual outsourcing of these formatting processes, let's say, for instance, to India, which is what's happening in the industry right now, is really expensive, so it's not sustainable. And then the third thing, of course, you need technical knowledge if you want to sustain a process that includes HTML websites, includes EPUB and other forms of publications. So what we do is we are launching a new product that will do XML first workflows and really focuses on being simple, like you saw in the UI before, but will also allow publishers and small universities to include their tool chains. And to make this spread a lot, we'll make most of this available open source, but also, of course, there's going to be a version hosted by Sciflow if you want to use that. Since this is a very international event, I'd love to talk to you. We're going to start internationalization probably with next year. We are right now in Europe and in Germany, but I'd love to talk to all of you and to see your perspectives. And if you want to try Sciflow for free, you can do that at sciflow.net. So last but not least, here's my contact details. Please feel free to reach out, and I'd be lucky and happy to talk to you. All right, thank you.
So Frederick, it was a pleasure to listen to your presentation. Since I was not so much time ago a master student myself, I would definitely take an advantage of using this tool for my master's thesis, for example. And yeah, we have a couple of questions. Well, actually one at this point. You mentioned a Sciflow Publish project, and probably you know, like a lot of people go to or try to submit their papers to this Springer because it's peer-reviewed. Like how does this review happen for Sciflow Publish? Like how do you validate the studies if they're published there?
So Sciflow Publish itself is a tool that universities and research organizations can use. They already have journals that they're working on, that they use Word for, that they use email for. And what we're doing is providing them a way to keep one file, invite everyone to work on it, have revisions of it, and then also use something like commenting, and something like anonymous peer review is also something that we will be working on.
Wow.
So we'll be integrating with the existing structures here.
And another question from my side. Like right now, you definitely concentrated on academia institutions. And yeah, do you plan to develop further? Like, I don't know, anything about of academia for this business?
So right now we are only in Germany and only in public, like in higher education, so universities and research institutions. And scaling this to the world, I think, is going to be a big enough market for us right now, which doesn't mean that this kind of tool wouldn't be like interesting or very useful for the private sector and others as well. But that's just for the next years. That's not what we decided to focus on.
Yeah, thank you for your answers. And at this point, I think it's better if we move to our quick group Q&A. And yeah, I would like all the speakers to turn the cameras on so we could see who is present at the moment. Because I think if we speakers are not active right now, we better make another round first of speed dating. So, okay, I think only Frederick right now here. So then let's, no, Ash is also here. Okay, super. So any more speakers that right now present and ready to speak for group Q&A? Oh. All right, I would say then, super, we have 3 speakers. So I think at this point, we are good to start Q&A. And yeah, Frederick, my last question was to you, and I think it's logical to to begin with you right now. And there's a question from Christina Garcia in our Q&A. How did you acquire your first clients? Because yeah, your business model is different from others, definitely, and it's interesting how you got your first clients on board.
Absolutely. So I heard this today, and I heard this before. Starting in the German market is quite difficult because everyone's quite skeptical. So we had a hard start, going to a lot of different meetings and going to Lange Nacht der Wissenschaft, which is like an event that happens at a lot of universities, and showing our prototypes there and showing it to hundreds of thousands of people probably. And then at some point we found the right people to get in touch with university departments, and that was a very long process. But luckily we found some university and library professionals who really enjoyed our product and who gave us a shot. And now we're super happy. They're still our customers, and we'll always love them for being the first. And now everyone else, of course, because we're a bit bigger now, is jumping on board and seeing the value. But the first years, to everyone who's starting a company, or especially in EdTech, the first years are a bit hard, but I can see the value now, and it was worth it.
So thank you for this extensive answer. And I would like to proceed with Ash. So could you tell us how do US American schools and universities see the value of German EdTech? Like, are Americans open to buy in?
Well, it's curious that you call yourselves German EdTech, because I think when I think about German EdTech companies, they're particularly proficient in certain areas and around solving specific problems. For example, I think they probably have some of the best student data privacy standards in the world. I was speaking with a member of the audience just a few minutes ago about the irony of approaching a US school, having built such strict student data privacy standards for your own German company, and the US school asking, oh, by the way, that's too strict for us. You need to align with what our standards and our regulations around COPPA and FERPA. I know it doesn't make logical sense, but that's usually how governments tend to operate, right? And schools are probably worse than governments. So I know there's a lot of frustration there in terms of being able to take some of your strengths and transplant them here, but aligning, the lesson there is to align with what the customer needs, and understanding that is the first step. Second, I'll also mention that no company is a German company, no company is a US company anymore, right? Every company is a global organization, given that we're in the largest user test of distance learning in the history of mankind. And sure, there are legalities around whether you have your servers or operations within certain borders, but that's becoming less and less important. And I would argue only really important once you're talking to investors or specific types of customers. For the average user and the average customer, there really isn't a distinction between a German company and a US company. So I'd say thinking outside of your geographic constraints is probably the best favor you can do yourself now, and instead aligning with what a customer particularly needs. I know that's a very high-level answer, but I think that's the best I can do right now.
Well, I find it myself as a valuable insight for everyone who starts business in EdTech right now. Like, go abroad from the very beginning. It makes sense. So I got a message from Christian Rebernik that he will join his camera in one moment. At this moment, yeah. So Christian, I hope everything is going good on your trip. And yeah, the question saved for you is actually, what kind of profile are you searching for a master's program? Or in the other case, the best student by persona for your tomorrow's education.
Yes, I'm more than happy to talk about that. For us, as a university focused for impact, we're really looking for digital natives, literally, and it doesn't matter which age at this period, but they need to have 3 years at minimum professional experience, because it's an executive education program. And we're looking for people who are really interested into purpose setting. One of the first orientation classes they're doing actually is about mission identification. So why do they study in the first place? What do they want to achieve? What are their personal learning and growth goals? So this is something which is important also in our selection process. And otherwise, from a regional perspective, because we are accredited in the US and also in the European Union, we're looking specifically into these two regions actually for our. You can study from anywhere. We have currently students from Boston as from Berlin, for example.
Wow. So at this point, Ash, there is one more question to you. What do you see as the single greatest challenge in Kvath education in the coming 2 to 5 years in US?
I think it's all the problems we've created in the last 10 years. So I'll be more specific about that. What the current educational system, and this is not subject to education technology, but technology has helped exacerbate it, is that specific types of learners in specific geographies at certain ages don't necessarily look like the average learner, because the average learner doesn't exist, right? We've basically left behind, I think, about a third of students who don't have access to the standard infrastructure we expect. A decent internet connection. They might not have a device that looks or feels like what we tend to take for granted, and they might not, speak a particular language, come from a certain background. The list goes on, right? So once you sum up all these non-traditional backgrounds, they actually make up the majority of the US student. We need to start realizing that the average student doesn't exist, and therefore, once we do, we'll start figuring out that we need to be creating solutions for students who are also parents. Again, one of the largest groups that are growing in the US, right? We'll start realizing that there's very small businesses that need to train employees like we used to train employees for large companies, right? So these evolutions and trends will continue to exacerbate. And I think that in K-12 education, we can spend our time figuring out solutions at the intersection of technology, policy, and the learner. Because if we can't take all those three things into account, then we're leaving out a large market, which, it's the logical thing to do as an entrepreneur, but also the right thing.
Thanks for your answer. And our final question goes to Alok. You have mentioned this long story of foundation of Moonshot Junior. And the question to you, if you would start again, like time travel, start again, what you would do different from the very beginning?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. I think we are kind of in the beginning. We are only a year-old company, but I think some of the things what we have packed in part of our curriculum and where we are, I think we might have got a lot of confusing message from the market. We were very determined what we want to do. There are people, they might say this might not work, there might be limited time, this might be an issue, but we kept rolling and we realized that we should have kept that noise to limit it. Especially when you are a young company, there will be a lot of noise, there will be a lot of naysayer, and I think you just need to ignore some of it. So we might have listened just too much. I think that could have been something where we could have been more efficient, save some time. And that's also including investor. I think and then one really piece of advice, I think this is very important, since there are a lot of new EdTech founders. There are all the mushrooming had happened in all during the pandemic. A lot of shop has been created by the folks who will just bring some people who might not be really investor. They look like, or they will make them look like investor, but they're really not an investor. They do not even have money to invest. What happened if you sit down on poker table and play with the wooden dollar? You do not get the same kind of intensity or advice and all that. So what happened? These people are there in the fundraising event. They might charge you $200. You are trying to raise fund and you are getting advice. Even if I don't get money and if I get genuine advice, that's good. But you don't get genuine advice, because this guy who is sitting on those tables, a lot of time they are not investing. They are just there so they fill the chair. And now when they give the advice, they are really playing with the wooden dollar. They are really not trying to put money. And it just creates a lot of noise. Their feedback might not be genuine. They might not be doing enough due diligence. So I think all the new EdTech founders, be very aware where you are going. If you are presenting your story to these investors, look at their background and collect the feedback. That's a good thing to do. But make sure you are collecting only the genuine feedback and ignoring the noise. Very, very important for early founders.
So cut the noise and get feedback. And start your EdTech startups already. We are waiting for more of them in Germany. Thanks for the answer. It's actually also very motivating. So guys, at this point, let's start the second round of our business speed date. And yeah, now we will go back to we turn off the presentation, go back to our lounge and get shuffled. So much fun. Our network in more free way for last 20 minutes. All I wanted to say at this point that SIBB is happy to host this event. We have met really wonderful people from both sides of Atlantic Ocean. And yeah, I myself learned a lot of new insights about EdTech and practically ready to go and start my own business. But yeah, it also gives a lot of motivation to create more events of such kind, maybe with more active interactions and lessons and getting more feedback, of course. So guys, we will send also another email with the feedback request, and everything would be appreciated, really. I also want to mention that we have 2 events coming up soon. One will be together with SIBB, basically tomorrow. It's Industry 4.0. And for our Deep Tech Hub Poland, we'll have a wonderful event about getting rid of the workforce problem. There is a lack of skilled workers, and there are different possibilities to get the skilled workers from abroad to Germany. So at this point, thanks everyone for attending our event, and let's continue in free, relaxing mode in networking during the last 24 minutes. Good luck, everyone, and let's hop back to the tables.